History happened everywhere.
The verdict.
This is our after-show podcast where we look back at the most recent episode 92, Painting in Oman during 2007 to 2009. So if you haven't listened to that, do go back and check it out, or else there will be spoilers ahead.
I have a drop dead line of 5:45 in BST.
Hello, my name is Ryan Weir, and I am here in the HHE studio with the ceiling fresco to my cave wall handprint. It's Mr. Peter Goddard.
I'm a fresco because I'm fresh and ready to go.
Damn right you are, son. Damn right. And we are joined as ever by the derivative designer of divisionism. It's the judge himself. It's Mr. Paul Dursley.
Good evening.
Now, Peter, I have spent the past week selling my collection of nude portraits to an excited gaggle of middle-aged expats, and as such, I've forgotten everything we talked about during the episode. So, would you mind reminding me what happened in, let's say, 60 seconds?
No problem. When would you like me to start?
Do it now.
We travelled to the Middle Eastern nation of Oman, a stable society of historic seafarers who like nothing more than burning frankincense whilst watching bulls push each other around at what they call the weekend. We looked at painting during the Great Recession, 2007 to 2009, a period when all the money vanished thanks to a housing bubble. We met Karen Carpenter, who's actually a painter, who had to adjust her style when she realised her enthusiasm for nudes was not shared by the locals. And we met George H. Lewis, who painted quite literally with the land itself mixed into his paints. And finally, we looked at centuries of art scrawled on Wadi rock walls of Oman, from ancient creatures to rather less ancient motor cars. It was painting. It was Oman. It was 2007 to 2009.
That was last week's episode done, summarised nicely. Nice one, son. Now we're over to a young Dursley, who's gonna tell you what he thought of thee. He'll take you apart without any care. He's the lovely Paul Dursley. The lovely Paul Dursley.
Oh, yes, I remember now, and what a sonorous masterpiece of historical splendour it was. But what does it matter what I think? Nothing, because we are here for the opinion of just one man, Judge Dursley. So, Paul, before we convene the court and receive your final ruling, please paint us a picture of your first impressions of episode 92.
I think it was quite a difficult subject, given the nature of the area, but a fascinating country.
Yes, the very narrow time period didn't help us at all. I found myself struggling quite a bit when researching this one.
Yes, even though it was modern and therefore there was things on the internet written about it.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a shoo-in, I must say.
I kind of enjoyed the process, mainly because I just asked two people to do my section for me, really.
Does ease the burden somewhat, doesn't it?
Yeah, having two interviews was a nice addition. Normally we just have the one, but it was nice to hear sort of a variety of voices.
I think if I have one regret, it was that we weren't able to feature any Omani artists, which obviously we do like to keep things local, but the limited time and limited Arabic skills in our case sometimes means we have to take the European view.
Yes, we have actually received some criticism to that fact. Yes, it was a bit of a Britfest, as somebody said to me. So I don't know if you guys want to hear a little bit about a couple of artists that I found from Oman?
Let's hear it.
Paul?
Oh, does my opinion matter?
Absolutely, you're the judge.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll start by talking about Anwar Sonia. He is a man who has had a profound influence on the art scene in Oman. He is today referred to as one of the founders of the Omani art movement. He took up painting quite early, and he started focusing on the country's various landscapes, mountains and mosques, but also its cultural heritage too. But eventually he started moving to people and painting them. His reputation grew from those, and exhibitions and commissions started to roll in. And by the 1970s, Anwar is considered one of the founders of the Omani art movement. His work then evolves from the 1970s onwards. He becomes known for a more modern art style. He has paintings that have bright colours on them, strong brushstrokes rather than naturalistically. Today, in his late 70s, he still exhibits his work in galleries throughout Oman. He's seen as something of a national treasure amongst the people there, but not amongst all the people. The art scene in Oman is starting to shift, and a new breed of younger artists are trying to move things away from that traditional art style that Anwar and his peers have. They want to use art for making more of a social comment on some of the more challenging and controversial aspects of life in Oman. For example, one of these artists is a guy called Mohammed Al-attar, and he's experimenting with digital art. He's using that to sort of comment on what it means to be a man growing up in Oman today. Now, he says that many young Omani men grow up in a culture of toxic masculinity, with a societal pressure on them that results in them having insecurities about their identity and their gender. And so he's using his art to confront that, basically allowing the viewer to embrace their feelings of vulnerability, what he calls a judgment-free space for broken souls.
Well, this isn't a judgment-free space, I'm afraid. But we may have some broken souls later.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no. So his work often portrays bearded men with tears on their face, each with an expression of deep emotional pain. Now, that might not seem especially hard-hitting to our Western eyes, but remember that in Oman, there is a social view of masculinity which doesn't really allow for the projection of emotions in that way. And so Al-attar and other Omani artists are challenging that perception. They're arguing that these are ideas that should be a thing of the past. After all, showing emotion is neither feminine nor masculine. It's simply the result of being human.
I agree, which is why when I weep at the end of this episode, it's okay.
Yeah, I think both of us are weeping. Anyway, look, it's an argument that continues, and the establishment are doing their bit to sort of continue to push more traditional art styles and stifle this new creative expression. Traditional galleries continue to show landscapes and portraits of forts, and they're having to think slightly more creatively. So they're using digital art, so Instagram, to present their things rather than actually presenting it in a gallery. They have had pop-up physical galleries where they don't present the art. What they have is a QR code that you can go in and scan and see that image on your phone. So sort of highlighting to you that it's something sort of more private, something more secretive, that you shouldn't be seeing it in public.
Is that how you distribute your nudes, Ryan?
It is, yeah. I circulate them around via QR codes. Anyway, so despite all these challenges, Al-attar is hopeful that the future is going to be different. He points out that there's this whole new generation of Omanis that are willing to see this and want to see this work. But he does say that that change is only going to come when people in positions of power act as the catalyst for that change, right? Actually do something to help support them. So anyway, there you go. The Omani art scene is clearly in a state of transformation, and while there isn't yet support from private institutions and the government, this new generation of artists is doing their bit to try and forge a new way and a new cultural identity for the country. So I wish them all the best.
Me too. I would also like to just name drop an Omani artist, someone who didn't manage to get a good enough story linked to the time in the episode. But I do like her stuff. So as well as this being an excuse to tweet and Instagram some of the images, Alia Al-Farsi does some lovely paintings that I particularly enjoyed. So if you're looking for Omani art, I would say that's not a bad place to start either.
What do they look like?
Hard to describe. I'll post some pictures. So if you check out our socials, you will be able to see them.
Nice.
Okay, Ryan, well, I also wanted to bring a bit more back to develop the theme outside of the constraints of the episode of rock art and cave art in particular.
Yeah.
So doubtless you're familiar with probably the most famous of the rock art in the world, I would argue, which is the Lascaux caves in the Dordogne region of France.
Oh, yes, they're very famous, aren't they?
Very famous.
Aren't they relatively... Well, they're very old, but they were only discovered quite recently.
Well, I'm glad you asked me about that, because they were discovered in September 1940 by 4 boys and a dog, which, if that's not an Enid Blyton book, I don't know what is.
I don't think that dog discovered nothing, by the way.
That dog was probably instrumental. No doubt emerged with a bone, possibly an ancient bone.
An ancient paintbrush.
What was the dog called? Bunty.
Probably the most popular member of this podcast is Bunty. So anyway, these guys found a series of caves with ancient paintings of animals with horses and bulls and deer and stuff like that, as well as people and some abstract stuff as well. And they were dated between 15,000 and 17,000 years ago.
That's a long time ago.
But the reason I wanted to talk about it wasn't that it was particularly old, but it was really popular. It attracts millions of visitors, but between 1948 and 1963, there's more than 1 million people. And this starts to damage the art in the caves. So in the 1960s, the place was actually closed to the public.
Well, that's sad.
It's okay, Ryan. You can still go, because in the 1970s, they dig a new set of replica caves in the same hill.
What?
And in 1983, they open up Lascaux 2, a replica of the cave, which is now open to the public.
What? So there's a man-made version of it?
A man-made version, but we're not finished, Ryan. They made another replica of the cave called Lascaux 3.
What? Why?
In 2012, that cave went on tour around the world.
Really? That's fantastic.
Still not done, Ryan. In 2016, Lascaux 4 is unveiled. This is a new copy of all of the painted areas. I guess the first ones were the prime bits of the cave, but they've done a new copy of all of the bits, larger and more accurate, apparently, and it integrates digital technology, which I found a little perplexing.
But if they were drawn with their fingers, they are digital technology.
Nice. Yeah, that's very good. There you go. You get 4 different versions of Lascaux caves available for your enjoyment. But Ryan, there's a different cave that I wanted to tell you about, because it's called Cueva de los Manos.
Okay.
Or the Cave of Hands. You mentioned that you liked that sense of putting your hand on hands. In Patagonia, there's a cave with over 2,000 of those handprints. These are ones that have been stenciled with a bone pipe to blow paint, so they're the outline of the hands. There's 2,000 of them in this cave.
All one person's hand? Like, did he just go crazy and just do
Probably
hundreds?
not. There's 829 left hands and 31 right hands, so that suggests at least one left-handed and one right-handed artist.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know whether it's the same person. Probably feels like the work of a number of people or one absolute madman.
Yeah. I like to feel like he got the whole tribe in, was like, come on, I'm doing everyone's hand.
Yeah, come on, guys. Let's do it's like a team photo, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. That's great.
And my last cave, Ryan, is really recent, actually, Paul. This may be one you were thinking of, 2017. In the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, there's a place called Lian Tedongne Cave. So in there, archaeologists found a well-preserved painting of a pig on the wall, and they estimated this to be 45,000 years old.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, this is believed to be the oldest figurative art in the world.
That's amazing.
It's kind of cool as well. It's very clearly a pig. It's really well preserved. I guess there's a bunch of others that are a bit more damaged, but there's this one pig just like, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I do remember reading somewhere that there were some Stone Age handprints that were found that had missing fingers. And they think that it may have been some sort of sacrificial thing where they would cut off a finger as part of a religious ritual or something. So how about that?
It's amazing. Early Yakuza. So there you go. That's why it's fine to draw on walls, guys.
Great. I'm going back to the public toilets with my marker pen in hand.
Don't do that.
Peter was here. All right, so in the episode, Peter, you talked about how weekends in Oman used to be Thursday and Friday, and that's like gradually shifting to Saturday, Sunday.
It was Thursday, Friday to 2013, I think it was, and then they changed it to Friday, Saturday to match the rest of the neighbouring countries.
Yeah, so I thought I'd dig deep into the origins of weekends.
Of course.
I don't think our concept of a weekend is very old. I think it's probably the 50s.
Well, you're absolutely right, but let me take you back to the earliest origins of the weekend. So in ancient Mesopotamia, which is one of the earliest known civilizations, they had a system where certain days of the month were considered unlucky. And so depending on different phases of the moon, people were encouraged to stop working because it was just bad luck.
That's a very self-serving superstition. I can imagine the person who came up with that. Oh, Saturday's very unlucky.
Yeah, we should take that day off. The ancient Egyptians followed on from that. They also had days of rest during the month, and these were tied to religion, though, rather than the phases of the moon. Following the Egyptians, around 1000 BCE, Moses comes down from Mount Sinai with a bunch of commandments from God, the fourth of which states that followers of Judaism should observe a day of rest on the Sabbath, the Saturday.
That was his PR commandment, wasn't it? It's like, don't kill. I was like, oh, I want to kill. Don't steal. Damn it, I want to steal. You get Saturdays off. All right, I'm in.
Later on, of course, after the death of Jesus of Nazareth, early Christians decide to observe Sunday as their day of rest. This was the day of Jesus' resurrection, so they make Sunday their day of rest in recognition. Later, Islamic cultures, they start to recognize Friday as their day of rest and religious observance. And so, basically, for a long time, the Muslims observe a rest day on a Friday, the Jews rest on a Saturday, and Christians rest on a Sunday. So I'm thinking I'm just going to take all three, have a 3-day weekend.
I too am an open-minded believer.
I see no problems in that at all. Anyway, so fast forward to Europe in the Industrial Revolution, and workers there are facing terrible conditions. They're working in factories, meaning long hours, no rest days at all. A movement begins, though, which pushes the factory owners to treat their employees better, including shorter work weeks. The owners initially resist these changes, but eventually they relent, and the workers are given Saturday afternoons off. Hooray!
And there's a consequence of that, actually, because that's why football matches traditionally start on a Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it gave people time to leave work, have a pint, and go to the football.
Oh,
so
that's fascinating.
That's why traditionally it's at 3 o'clock on a Saturday.
That's brilliant. In 1926, though, car manufacturer Henry Ford, he steps into the ring and he decides that he's going to mandate a 40-hour work week for his employees. Good news for them.
Hurrah!
And by the mid-20th century, a 2-day weekend on Saturday and Sunday became formalised. It was written into labour laws in America. It became part of various regulations across Europe. And today, that's pretty much the standard. Although it is shifting because there is a growing movement which is calling for a new working week, which would see employees work 4 days rather than 5 and rest for 3. And a number of companies and countries have actually started doing this already. Between 2015 and 2019, Iceland conducted one of the world's largest trials of a 4-day working week.
Yeah, it's still not very big, though, is it?
Because there's only 7 people in Iceland.
The working population of Iceland is probably only about 200,000 people.
Sounds big to me.
So Iceland conducted their trial, and that was a controversial decision, but in the end, the results seemed to be positive. The trial showed that there was a significant improvement in productivity and employee well-being, so good on both sides. Certainly enough to convince a number of the public sector employers to actually adopt this permanently. So a load of people in Iceland now are working a 4-day working week thanks to those trials. But the concept isn't without its critics. On the flip side, you've got Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, and he has poo-pooed the idea of a 4-day work week many times. He says that he believes long hours are necessary for achieving extraordinary results, especially in innovative fields like technology. He says you've got to work the hours.
Right, yeah, and he's a scientist, so he would have conducted an experiment to that effect in like the people of Iceland, right?
Well, that experiment basically is him doing it. He says he works 100 hours a week, and he says that the success of his companies relies on the time that people put in. So, yeah, his employees are expected to work as many hours as they can, basically. So there you go. I mean, how this is going to work out in the future, I don't know. We've got increased automation coming, robots, AI, it's all coming within the next few years, and I do suspect that employees working long hours are going to be a thing of the past, but who knows?
That's been a narrative for a long time, hasn't it? That technology will liberate us, and yet somehow all it does is make a lot of people very unemployed and the rest of them work even harder somehow. It doesn't tend to work, does it? Thanks
for that positive note.
Well, it's just you have to find a model to balance it. There needs to be another Henry Ford idea.
It is quite an exciting time because the experiments with universal basic income and experiments with the shorter hours all kind of lending themselves to some fundamental questions about how we relate to life as workers and as humans. And for a long time, your entire identity would be expressed through the work you did, but actually, increasingly, that's not necessarily going to be the case. And I, for one, very much looking forward to a time when all the drudgery is taken out of my life and I can express myself and do my art or whatever else I might have in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I agree with Mr. Musk. We should reintroduce the Victorian work ethic.
I thought you were going to say the workhouse.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely, yes. That's part of it.
Yeah, you'd have the unemployed breaking rocks with hammers, wouldn't you?
Well, they're not unemployed then, are they?
Problem solved.
All right, so look, one of the things that we didn't touch on during the episode was art criticism.
I'm worried that you're bringing up the concept of criticism given the verdict and the upcoming grading we're going to get, but go on.
So, art criticism is kind of an art form in and of itself. You've got professional reviewers that go around that are paid to describe, analyse, interpret, and sort of evaluate artworks. The idea being to allow less informed people to better understand and appreciate art. Now, art criticism goes back thousands of years, but the first notable critic, and the guy who actually coined the phrase art criticism, was a guy called Jonathan Richardson the Elder, and he wrote the first work of art theory called An Essay on the Theory of Painting. He wrote that in 1715, and inside it he laid the groundwork for judging artists and their paintings. He even coined the phrase connoisseur to refer to someone who knows a lot about the fine arts.
And that's interesting. I'd sort of assumed that was just a word that evolved rather than someone went, I'm going to call it this.
Yeah, he was pretty famous during his time, not just for his reviews. He was also an accomplished artist of his own. He was even considered somewhat of an inspiration for a number of English artists, including Hogarth, who saw him as quite a mentor figure. But his views weren't without controversy either. He admired the technical skills of the Italian Renaissance sculptors, people like Raphael and Michelangelo, but he was critical of their extravagances and lack of restraint, he wrote. He got in trouble with his reviews of Dutch art too. Artists in Holland responded to him by calling his words too opinionated and dismissive of techniques he does not understand.
Yeah.
Overly defensive, in my opinion.
Well, that's the criticism that's always applied to critics, so it really happened right from the start. Yeah.
Closer to home, he wrote scathing reviews of English-born painter Sir Godfrey Kneller. He painted portraits which he considered to be lacking depth and emotional engagement. This was said to be too much for Sir Godfrey, who responded strongly, saying that Richardson was simply a lesser artist trying to undermine my superior status.
The currently unknown Godfrey.
So, yeah, today, the most famous art critic is a guy called Jerry Saltz. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning critic for the New Yorker magazine, and he's known for his sharp and provocative insights. Famously, he said that 85% of the art you see isn't any good, but everyone has a different opinion about which 85% is bad. But he's also known for having a pop at quite a few artists, some famous artists too. He wrote that Julian Schnabel's paintings look like finger paintings by an arrogant kindergartner who's going through a very messy divorce. According to Saltz, Damien Hirst is the golden boy of kitsch, a snake oil salesman in the high temple of art.
Good on Damien Hirst.
Yeah, well, yes. Now, as you both know, we produce cover art for each of our episodes on HHE Podcast, and so for this episode, I asked an online art forum whether or not they would be willing to criticise it for us. If you've not seen it, this week's episode features the face of an Omani woman in front of a rural landscape with her face and her clothes covered in colourful splotches of paint. And, well, here's some of the reviews. An exquisite confluence of vivacity and cultural essence, a striking visual symphony in a riot of colours.
I feel like that could be a review of wine as well.
Well, it could be a review of anything.
I'll take it. Another person said, each brushstroke on the subject's face pulsates with the rich, storied heritage of Oman. And another simply said, this is trash. So there you go. It's probably true because it shortly got taken down thereafter for self-promotion.
Well done.
Or at least that's what they told me anyway.
We'll post that on the social media too. You can make your mind up for yourself. Trash or treasure.
Nice. That was good. And so, we have come to the end of the line. It is time for us to step into the dock, Peter, and prepare to face the people's judge. Judge Dursley, are you ready to give your verdict?
Yes, I am.
Then will the defendants please rise? Come on, Pete.
All right,
Get out of my way.
shove over.
Come on.
Come over a bit.
Stop.
Come on.
Oh, it's so bony.
You need to lose weight.
Right, Your Honour, as usual, may we start proceedings by first asking for your verdict on factual content.
Well, I think, as I said earlier, you're on a quite sticky wicket here because the time period being so short and your critics being correct, saying that you spoke from a Western point of view and you only introduced Omani artists during this episode, I'm afraid I'm going to be a bit negative on that.
Well then, may I ask for your grade for factual content?
I'm sorry, I shall give you C.
Everyone's a critic.
Then, Your Honour, may we have your verdict on entertainment value?
Well, I think it was quite entertaining, and I liked that you had a couple of guests on it talking through, which sort of hearing those different voices rather than your monotonous drone was very pleasant, and it also meant you had fewer sketches.
Wait, monotonous drone?
Yes.
Then, Your Honour, may we have your grade for entertainment value?
For entertainment value, I shall give you B-.
It's above a C. I'm pleased with it.
Okay, then I'm also pleased with it. Then, Your Honour, may we please have your verdict on Dursley factor?
Mysterious.
Elusive.
Well, first of all, I was expecting Pete to have done a whole episode on paintings by Giorgio Armani during that period. Because every time I heard Armani, I you were sort of thinking,
Crossed my mind too, to be fair, many times.
What's he got to do with it? And a very interesting country. I think you did okay.
Ooh, okay. High praise from the judge.
But I'll still give you C+.
Oh.
Just hovering around that B-, C+C area, aren't we?
No statue to Dursley.
All right then. And so, gentlemen, we reach the final verdict. But before the judge passes his ruling, Peter, we have an opportunity to enter a plea. If we choose to do so, would you mind doing it?
I'll do it, yes. I think you should consider that we had the wisdom and experience of two special guests to share their Omani experience and insight that you can't get anywhere else in the world. But consequently, you should recognise this contribution as well as the fascination of Omani rock.
Shut up.
Okay, I'll stop there.
Yeah, probably stop there now, mate. All right, well, Your Honour, the defendants stand before you. Have you reached a verdict?
Yes, I have.
In which case, I would ask most respectfully for your ruling.
Pete and Ryan, I shall give you a straight C.
Hooray! I'll take a C.
I'm disappointed.
Oh, all right,
to
then
try
I'm
harder for
disappointed
next
too. Okay, so that's our show for this week. If you'd like to get in touch about any of the things we've talked about on the show or just to say hello, you can reach out to us on social media through our website at hhepodcast.com or by email at peteandryan@hhepodcast.com.
Yes, indeedy. We'd love to hear from you. And you never know, you might end up featured on a future show.
That's right, and one way to definitely feature on a future episode is to rate and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Your recommendation there goes a really long way to bringing the show to new listeners.
Like Keb, this is a 5-star rated Keb review show. Be like Keb.
Be like Keb.
It's only a C-related show.
Now, if you're on Mastodon, Facebook, Instagram or X, you can find us at HHE Podcast, and if you subscribe to those, you'll get an alert when we post, well, in this case, a lot of images are available, so we'll be putting some pictures up on all of those.
Absolutely, and we are going to be back again soon with our next episode, a Euros 24 soccer special, episode 93, hot in Scotland during 1976 versus clothing in Poland during 2008.
Easy for you to say.
But in the meantime, a huge thank you to the judge himself. Thank you, Paul.
Many thanks. Bye.
And that's it. I guess all that's left to say is...
I wonder what the artist really intended by this. So, Ryan, Karen Carpenter talked about barasti huts, you may recall.
She did. She said that her husband told her that that's what they were going to live in. It made me laugh.
So I came across barashti huts in my research because what I was trying to find was some architecture that involved paint, because you're going to paint buildings, right?
Painting and decorating.
Yes, exactly. Side note, didn't really, total washout, but I did come across these barashti huts, and they're kind of cool. You find them in the desert, unsurprisingly, and they're a traditional form of hut. They're made of palm fronds and branches of palm trees, and to be honest with you, they look like, if you were ever washed up on a desert island and you were in a film about being washed up on a desert island and you made a hut, that's what a barashti hut looks like.
Oh, okay.
A bivouac. Lovely word, bivouac.
Yeah, they don't look like long-term buildings. Well, I don't know how long they last, but they're unsurprisingly quite breezy because there's a lot of space in the walls. It's not designed to keep the weather out so much as let it pass through. But they are kind of cool looking. But as I was saying, I was looking for architecture and things like that. And I didn't really find anything with paint, but I did find a really awesome, and this is going to sound weird, fish market.
That is weird.
It was an awesome fish market, right? This is it was out of our time period and it wasn't really suitable for the episode, but I did want to bring it because it's called the Mutrar Fish Market. It's in the west of Muscat, and it's this incredibly beautiful structure. It's not quite a building. It's like it's almost like a carport with lots of sort of slats, but they come together in really beautifully elegant way, and they draw together at this one point, and they form this. I can only describe them as kind of angelic wings.
So it's a modern structure, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was designed by a Norwegian architecture firm called Snøhetta, and they say the canopy's form is derived from the sinuous flow of Arabic calligraphy. And I bring it to the verdict for no other reason that I want to tweet a picture of it because it's really beautiful. But I really like this contrast of the barashti hut, which is the palm fronds in the desert, and this beautiful, really modern, white, angelic, kind of glowing almost building. It really made me think of that old and new Oman. And one of the things that came out of my research really strongly was quite how much Oman changed from like the early 1970s to today, from very traditional, very undeveloped nation into a wealthy modern nation.
Yeah. I wonder if Norwegians seeing sand dune deserts is the same as Oman is seeing Norwegian snowdrifts.
I've never seen a desert, so I can imagine I'd be like blown away. I mean, I've watched Lawrence of Arabia, and that's as close as I've got.
So, question for you, talking of snow in the desert. Why have a barashti hut? Why can't you just make an igloo out of sand?
I'll leave Paul to give the physics on that one.
You honestly want... Well, it's all to do with friction.
Just cut out some sand bricks.
If you can make a sand castle, surely you could make a sand igloo.
Exactly.
But isn't a sand brick a brick?
Well, yes.
So you're suggesting you make a brick building, Ryan, at this point?
Or, given the heat that you've got in a desert, you use that to melt the sand into glass and make the building out of that.
So you want to live in a glass building in the desert, Ryan, just to recap.
Yes.
But, the good news is everyone could look at you through the glass and go, yep, there he is. I told him not to do that.
Just a mummified, leathery corpse. I could grow some lovely tomatoes, though.
You'd be an exhibit.
All right, we're done with 4 minutes to go.
Well done, everyone. Hello, lovely YouTube folks. This is a special message just for you.
Yeah, thanks for listening all the way to the end.
Now, if you enjoyed the show, please let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
And don't forget to take a moment to hit that like and smash subscribe.
Hit that like?
Yeah.
Smash subscribe?
Yeah, it's what people say.
Do they, though?
Yeah, only the cool kids.
And you think you're the cool kids, do you?
No, we're the cool kids.
Oh, yeah, I suppose we are. All right, smash that like button, people. Smash it real good.
Oh, yeah. Nice.